1 second, ma'am, just bear with me.
Should look
So
like
I've
this.
got the,
It is in essence a letter addressed to Cedric Nkabinde from IPID. It's dated the 4th of June, 2018. If you turn to the next page, the person who has signed the letter is noted as Miss Patadi Maharaj,
yes,
Provincial Head, KZN.
yes,
And the contents of the letter, because you have not reached it, the subject line is precautionary suspension from work, and it details the reason for the suspension.
yes, yes.
Yes. So we now know that it was in fact, Miss Maharaj who suspended Cedric from
Yes, but the
KZN.
notice of intention to suspend was done by Van der Sand, where the
Okay.
process started.
And then on the next page, on the next line, Mr. Cedric says that in his testimony, he says that on the day that the disciplinary hearing was supposed to take place, you arrived at
Yes.
the hearing
Yes, yes.
to try and stop the hearing. Subsequently, after that, there was a settlement
Yeah,
that came about. Please, would you like to comment on that?
yeah, I mean, it's a lie. That's what I mentioned, because his lawyer, Gary Bell, sends a letter to the lawyer representing IPID, saying his instructions from his client are as follows: that the client wishes to resign. It's in my main, yeah, it's 1 second. And this is what we pulled off from the lawyers now recently. We asked the lawyers to give it to us. So it's Gary Bell from List and Company writes the following.
Who is Gary Bell?
He's actually the lawyer of the company that's representing Cedric. So if I remember, he was not at the hearing. And he says, I can even read it from here. He says, as per our discussions relating to an amicable manner in which the matter can be settled, we have taken instructions from our client, who has proposed the following. The employee withdraws a disciplinary inquiry and related charges forthwith. This comes from Cedric. Our client will resign with immediate effect. Comes from Cedric. Our client agrees to the employer request to withdraw all of his complaints which have been filed. The settlement agreement will be in full and final settlement. So the issue here, he wants to resign. When a person resigns, you can't discipline them. Can't do anything to them. So that's number one consideration. He's going. I was there to testify. I was scheduled to be a first witness against him. I was going to testify. And when he saw me, he spoke to Moses Dlamini, was a spokesperson, and said to Moses, is the chief here? Is he going to testify? Hey, I'd rather not testify. I'd rather go. I'd rather resign. That's how it happened. Because he couldn't face me, and the lies has been spreading, all because he didn't get a post, which he didn't even apply for. But yeah, someone got to him.
Sorry to interject. How did you, Cedric was one of your star investigators within IPID.
Yeah.
He was handling a very big matter, dealing with issues that related to an acting national commissioner.
Yeah.
And he was also praised for being one of the great investigators amongst his team members.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's filed a number of complaints on behalf of IPID in relation to these particular complaints that we speak about, particularly General Pahlani.
Yeah.
At which point does now Cedric move from being this lead investigator into Pahlani's matters to now sitting before a disciplinary hearing and facing dismissal?
So So after he refused to acknowledge he had been approached by cops to make a 204, in other words, to scuttle the investigations, he was removed from the task team by Mr. Sissoko. So he left the task team. And then he went back to his province. And when he went back to his province, he was then further suspended. That is in the investigation section. It's not in the executive director's office. In any event, he was suspended and all of that. But him leaving the task team made him go crazy. And then these complaints started popping up. We dealt with all the complaints, whether it's public protector, whether it's a PSC, whether it's I was not allowed to defend against former Minister Begitele, but it was a lie that Cedric told, and Begitele went on a lie to come and persuade Parliament. And two issues, Cedric Nkabinde and the concoction he did with members of state security, and which the IGI's got a complaint. I can read it out if anybody wants to hear it. But it's about the concoction, a long story, how they use juicy names, which is exactly what Mkwanazi did. Drop a nice juicy name like McBride. It's got nothing to do with PKTT or anything like that. So out of McBride comes now Nkabinde gets now really excited. Wow, he's got a chance to have a second bite at the chair. In fact, third bite, because he was sent back to fix up his evidence when his evidence was all over the place and was wrong. So this committee sent him back because it was clear he was lying. So after he came back with his repaired statement and information, he then starts singing a long song about me, not about Brown Mapotsi who was dealing with, not about Matlala, not about PKT, not about a letter that was written and amended and all of that. Robert McBride, an old story, deals with that. And then it's a nice, juicy name. So up comes Patlani. He suddenly feels resurrected. He somehow forgets he's got 2 cases waiting for him, serious cases, done and dusted, slam dunk cases. So my name is why I'm here. Dropped his name and then we can deal with him. It serves no purpose. I was not part of IPID when Patlani was prosecuted. I was not part of NPA took the decision to prosecute him. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not part of NPA. The duty of an investigator is to make the case and submit it, and they must decide whether they're going to prosecute or not. So that's what happened. So I cannot do anything for Patlani. There's nothing I can do. To mention my name, try and put me under pressure. It doesn't do anything to me. And Cedric said he lied. Well, I'm showing that Cedric lied. I'll deal with lie number 3 just now. Lie number 3 is Cedric says that there was a conspiracy against Patlani to falsely target him. No, it's not true. Sequence of events leading up to this Damascus moment is, according to the lie, the Bryant O'Sullivans. This lie has been mentioned before in support of Patlani after Nkabinde had been found out as a double agent and after he had been removed from the task team. I have furnished the evidence leader with the affidavits of Kuba, Sissoko, and various investigating officers, as well as the recording of telephone conversations between Nkabinde and Mandla Matlango and the transcripts of the same. As I have also given the evidence leader recording of a telephone conversation between Komo and Matlango. Attached hereto is a copy of the statement dated 24th of July 2018, deposed to by Kuba, marked RJM 23. Yeah, so that's a lie. So based on the lies Cedric told, I mean, at some stage, this Cedric's allegations landed up in a cash-in-transit WhatsApp group that was made up of policemen and security companies. And Mabula, the same guy that Patlani calls up to help him fight against us, drops it on that group, this complaint of Cedric, until one of the other members of the group from the security company said, but this got nothing to do with cash in transit. Why are you dropping it here? When I heard it, I tried to make contact with the Minister Tele because I knew Cedric's communication was with Tele's office over and over and over again. Then I went to see the minister. Minister, what is this? Minister Peggy Tele says to me, no, it's true. I got the document from Mabula. He sent it through an intermediary. I took the document as it was and locked it in my safe, and it never left my safe. So I don't know how it got out onto the group. So why would a full whole minister explain to me about the document he took and put in his safe? Well, what is he trying to explain? In any event, he used that to smear my name in this arm of the state, the legislature. He used that, which is based on a lie. I've shown now Cedric's lies. I've shown many of his lies. So to use it, for me not to, my contract to be extended, even though there was an impeccable record, IPID was stepping up. It was taking on the big guns, the dangerous men, the criminals with badges, the criminals in blue. Minister Tele and the entire committee, except for a few people, I think one of them was Honorable Diane Kola Barnard, who resisted. Philip Mhlongo from EFF, who was a family friend and who was close to my father, phoned me and said, Becky's flashing around here a paper which says you an enemy agent. Comrade Robert, I'm so disgusted by this man. I've always knew there's something wrong with him. He does that. But anyway, the most painful one was none of the others, not Ramatlakana. Ramatlakana is a serial he's a serial defector. But the one that pained me was Jerome Marke, because I respect Jerome Marke. Jerome Marke was hardcore liberation fighter and been twice to Robben Island, so I respected him. Why he's turned against me? So somebody, that's why, Honorable Chief Whip, your job is very important. How you guide people and not let their minds get fooled by the likes of Nkabinde.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. Chairperson, Mr. McBride told us that Mr. Nkabinde was to be a 204, and that's how the transition moved from him being a star investigator to now supporting General Patlani.
Yeah.
We see that also in your papers that he subsequently he's been filing affidavits as a complainant in General Patlani's matters.
Yes.
And now he's switched in support of General Patlani. He files a supporting affidavit, an answering affidavit.
Yes.
Do you have any comments about that?
Well, Cedric Nkabinde is just a greedy person, wants acknowledgement without putting the work in, and likes money. I mean, we're aware of him buying like 10 suits at a time and stuff like that. But that's part of an investigation. I can't speak about ongoing investigation. I'm sorry, it's not I'm refusing, it's not my investigation. It started off when I was at IPID. So he likes the flashy style, the money. By the way, he refused to tell this committee what he did on a weekend with General Mkhonazi. I noticed that. He said it's a boys' weekend out, so he can't talk about it. So there's some secret business went on there.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Mr. McBride. If I can now just point us back to we're at the tail end of our statement,
Yes, ma'am.
and we are now at 92.5 of the statement. In that section, you deal with the former public protector, Ms. Nkabinde, I think it's Advocate Nkabinde, tried to stop Nkabinde's disciplinary proceedings against, she tried to intervene basically in Nkabinde's disciplinary proceedings. Do you have any comments about that?
No, it's true. And also Pegitele also tried to, at the same time, forbid me from going ahead. And I've sent him an information note saying, it's not actually by me, it's by the head of legal saying, it is what I testified now. His supervisor suspended him. It's not McBride.
Yeah.
And you are interfering with the independence of IPID now.
If I can just perhaps read your statement into the record, you say, when that attempt failed by the public protector, the former public protector,
Yeah.
she subsequently conducted an unlawful investigation in favor of Nkabinde, recommending that my team and I be charged. These findings were set aside by the High Court, and you attach the judgment at JM 24A and B of the bundle. Perhaps just for the sake of completion, if we could turn to those annexures.
What number, ma'am? Page number?
I will show you. It forms part of the exhibit bundle.
Oh, this one?
Yeah,
Yes.
the exhibit bundle. And the exhibit bundle is sectioned off by blue paper. It would be the third section.
This side? Another blue one.
But more importantly, those are the documents that were before court, the affidavits. I think the more pointed one would be RJM 24B, which you will find in your bundle at 738.
1 second, ma'am.
It is a matter that was before the Pretoria High Court under case number 74427/19, dated 1 June 2022.
Yes, ma'am, I have it.
Would you like to comment about that judgment?
Yeah, the judgment sets aside the public protector's report. So it doesn't deal with the multitudes of reasons for setting aside that we do, but mainly the issue of procedural unfairness and biasness, which was a recurring theme with the public protectors' pronouncements.
So in your statement, you deal with this issue, and you said the report of a public protector was in essence in support of Cedric Nkabinde, and it was trying to stop disciplinary hearings from continuing.
Yeah.
And that report that was filed was set aside.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have the report here before us.
Yeah.
We have the court papers, but the judgment basically confirms that at the order.
So, ma'am, just to give a fuller picture. So it wasn't me who tried to stop the disciplinary.
Yes.
It was the public protector and the minister, not me, working in concert to stop the disciplinary process.
Yes. At 738, the applicants are members of IPID, as you would have said in your statement. I see Matthew Sissoko is the first applicant.
Yes, yes.
And it is against the Office of the Public Protector.
Yeah.
Ms. Busisiwe Mkhwebane was the second respondent.
Yes.
IPID was the third respondent.
Yes. Yes.
And the Fidelity Security Services, PTY Ltd, was the fourth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Minister of Police.
So, yes, if I can just go to the Fidelity issue. So at the time of the threat against Mandla's life, the initial one, we don't have the resources to track back on cell phones who sent this threatening message. So we use a service provider as an emergency. This is important because there's a lot of rumors about this afterwards. Because an official, an investigator's life is threatened. It's an urgent procurement in terms of Treasury regulations. So we got someone to interpret what is taking place in this threat and look at it and apply for the correct 204 and all of that. So 205, so that we can see what's going on. And
yes, you may continue.
Yeah. So out of that, we hired a service from Fidelity. So they made the person available to us on a temporary basis, which is Teresa Botha. But what is missing in the entire thing of what Cedric says? Cedric once sat on a panel of Teresa Botha when she applied for a job at IPID some time ago, 2015 or something. And he, out of the panel, there were 3 senior people, the 2 directors and him. And I've got a statement here. It's a statement from Van der Sant. He marked Teresa Botha so low that she could not be given the post. So the other 2 were impressed, give a high marks. It was Dan Morema, Van der Sant, and then Cedric Nkabinde. Surely, if his issues are against Teresa Botha, later on then he applies, there are 2 jobs applied for. So he stops Teresa Botha in the first time because what is she? She's a cell phone analyst. He stops her. But then what he does is he complains when he doesn't get a promotion. He's actually talking on the phone to Mandla. And his duplicity is of such a nature. After talks to Mandla and complain about the white people, he immediately phones the white people to Teresa and say, Teresa, how are you? Whatever. And that is a recording which we have. So that's the type of human being he is. So committee can judge for itself. And whether former Minister Bekitele should have believed him, well, Bekitele wanted to believe him. That's the issue.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. If I can just then take you just to